Stampin' friends. This is Lisa with Live and Let Stamp. And today we're going to be working on card 5 in my July signature card kit series of videos featuring the Stitch Stocking bundle. This card is a bit cumbersome. It has a lot of components with some very specific measurements to get everything to fit properly. So I will show you as the best way I have found to get everything lined up properly. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our Secret C card base. So I'm going to bring in my cutter and we'll go ahead and cut our cardstock at 5.5 and then score at 4 1/4. And we will go ahead and set that aside. We are also going to need a strip of this that is 4 1/4 wide. By 1 7/16. And luckily our Stampin' Up cutter makes it very easy to be that precise. So 1 7/16 puts that right there. Next, we're going to go ahead and get into our DSP. Okay, we're going to use the Candy Canes DSP, and we're going to cut that at 4 1/4, which I believe this already is, and that's going to be by 1 inch. And I'm going to go ahead and measure that on this side because it just makes it easier because I can hold this down here. Perfect. We're also going to need a white panel that measures 5 inches by 4 1/4. So we're going to start with getting this glued onto the Secret C, and then this is going to go right in the center of that white panel. So I'm going to use some liquid glue. To adhere this to the Secret C, and I want it right in the center. I'm going to be using a ruler a lot. Like I said, there's very precise measurements involved, and this is about 1/4 inch from the top and bottom. And I just want to make sure. So this needs to go up a little. And this is one of the reasons why I use the liquid glue, is so I can slide it. That looks good. Now, this is 5 inches top to bottom. This is 1 inch. So we can get this right in the middle, measuring 2 inches from the candy canes. So that'll be 2 inches on that side. It should be 2 on that side. That looks great. So we'll use our liquid glue so we have a little bit of wiggle room. Put on enough so that we'll have that little bit of time to move it. Just going So that sets up our paper so that we can then work out with our other panels. So we're going to work on these two panels that go up right next to this Secrecy. We're going to be using this die, and we're going to be using the Peaceful Pine. And I'm going to I have a piece of Peaceful Pine cardstock that's wider than I need. This is about close to 1.5 inches, and this is 4 1/4 wide, so I'm going to do it at 4.5. So it's 4.5 by about 1.5, and I'm going to need to do 2. So I've tried this both ways. I tried cutting it to this exact dimension and then putting this on and getting it all perfectly centered. And even if I taped it down with washi tape, it would move ever so slightly and not be straight. And it was very frustrating. So I just started cutting it in advance and then trimming it. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take these to the cutter and I'm going to go ahead and cut those out. So I've gone ahead and cut them out as straight as I could. It doesn't have to be perfect, but my total height is 1 1/16. So just above the star, it needs to be just over 1/8 inch, or exactly 0.4 centimeters or 4 millimeters. So if you have a millimeter ruler, I suggest using that because millimeters are just more precise. So I'm just going to line up my 0 mark right at the tip of that star. And I'm going to make a pencil mark. I'm going to kind of do a mark right there at 4 centimeters. And then I'm going to do it down here at the bottom and mark 4 centimeters. Gonna go ahead and cut that now. So you can see through your cutter. And I don't know how well it's gonna show up, but I'm gonna, as best I can. Now you can't necessarily push it up against because this may not be perfectly straight, which it isn't. So I'm lining up my pencil marks right in the center of that track. So this one needs to come over just a little, and this one needs to go over just a little. And that looks really good. So I'm going to hold this down and cut carefully. And now I'm going to turn it. Remember I said we need it to be 1 1/16. So now I'm going to line that up there. You can also mark the 4 centimeters on this side. I've had luck not doing that. And just, you know, it moves a little bit. So I'm looking at where this line goes through, and it looks like it's pretty straight. And the ends may not be even, so don't go by that. It looks pretty centered, and that's going to go right there, and that's looking really good. Looks very good. So for the ends, we need this to be 4 1/4 long. And it winds up being just barely longer than this little diamond that we're going to fill in with red. And I'm going to use my millimeter, and it's exactly 3 millimeters. So I'm going to mark 3 millimeters. 2, 3. Right there. And I'm going to cut that. You could just glue it on also and then trim it with your snips, which is what I'm going to do with the trees one that we're going to have. Not sure I'm liking this. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to trim this at 4 1/4. And if it's not perfect, it's okay too. And that should fit right on top. Okay, so you're going to do that twice. Okay, so I've repeated the process with the second cutout of this piece. And so I have those ready. So now we need the little red diamonds. So it's that same die. And it's these little tiny diamonds. So you just need a really thin piece of cardstock. You don't need to cut all the way through. And because one of them is covered on each one, you actually only need 4, which is great because they're easy to lose. So this just needs to be, I'm going to go ahead and cut the 5. So at about 4 1/4 or 4 3/8. And I'm just going to cut this scrap piece in half. And I'll go ahead and run this through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made my little diamonds. I have 8 of them here, which is what I need. So let's go ahead and adhere our Peaceful Pine star panels. I'm gonna use liquid glue. Okay, to add my diamonds, I'm going to be using my putty ended part of my take your pick tool. So I don't need one here. Okay, now we're ready to do the Christmas tree strips. We're going to be using Old Olive for that and this die. And again, we're going to have that 4 1/2 across, which this, I believe, already is. And then we're going to do that at about 1 1/2 inches. And you'll see why we're making it so wide when we go to trim it. I'm going to go ahead and go to my cut and emboss machine, and I'm going to die cut this a little bit above halfway. All right, now we're ready to trim these. I need to cut above the trees 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to make my marks. Right there. Go ahead and put that in the cutter. And this is why we left a lot here, was so we can slide it over to get it right in the center of the cutting track. So I'm looking through to get that in the center. Gonna press down on the plastic and give it a cut. So that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to cut it at 11/16, which is 3/4 of an inch minus a 1/16. Right there. And line that up. Remember, your ends may not be perfect. There we go. And that should complete the top of our strip. It's a little bit below this white, which I think will look fine on the card. I'm going to go ahead and leave that anyway. You can also trim that off, but that's a really, really thin piece to trim, but I think it's going to look fine. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to glue that on without trimming the ends. Just going to basically center it, and then I'm just going to snip it with my snips. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to use liquid glue. And there are 9 trees, so the 5th tree over from either side is the middle, and I'm going to aim that trunk of that tree right at that middle diamond. And go ahead and put that down. And then go to the other side with my snips and trim it off. Now I'm going to repeat that for the bottom panel. I want to take a look and see how that's going to look on our card base. So I'm going to fold it, use my bone folder to make a nice crease, and put that on there in the center. And I'm kind of looking at that extra white at the top, which I totally think looks fine. I wouldn't try to cut that with the cutter because it's such a little strip. It might not work so well. You could use a ruler and a craft knife, an X-Acto knife, but I think it looks fine, and I'm gonna leave it just like that. So I can go ahead and put this on our card front, and I'm gonna do that with Stampin' Seal. It's a pretty heavy panel with all the cardstock and glue we've put on it, and the Stampin' Seal is gonna have absolutely no problem adhering it. It's nice and strong, and I'm just gonna basically put it in the center. Does not have to be perfect. It's gonna look great. And we're gonna go ahead and press that down. That looks beautiful. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and do the rest of these features. So I'm going to cut one of these banner pieces with the real red cardstock. And then this tree square is from our Stitch Stocking dies, and I need to cut it 3 times. I need to cut the white, and then I need to cut it in Old Olive, and then I need to at least just cut a little bit of pecan pie for the stem. So I'll go ahead and get all of that cardstock ready. So once in white. There's a little glue on that, making that stick. So once in white. And once in Old Olive. And then I'm just going to get a tiny, tiny piece of pecan pie that I'll just put right at the bottom to get the trunk of the tree. So I'll go ahead and get those cut out. Okay, so I have these 3 pieces, and I'm going to use my craft knife attachment, which you can buy separately for your take your pick tool. And I find it works really well. You can do it directly on your glass mat, but it tends to move a little bit. So I just do it on one of these pieces of chipboard. These come in the kits. I always save them, and they're great for this purpose. So I'm just going to cut out my tree, and I'm always going to move the craft knife toward this direction so I don't accidentally slip and cut into the tree. And for the stem, I'll do the same thing. I'm gonna cut straight across. You can use your snips for this. I just find it a little more exact with the craft knife. Okay. Now, if you want this to nest inside the square, you can cut this out, but for this one, I just decided I kind of liked the dimension of having it on top. So I'm just gonna glue it right on top of the white square. I do want it all the way to the edge though to adhere, so make sure I get adhesive all the way to the edge. Line it up. And press it down. Because you're using liquid glue, you can move it a little bit to make sure it's right where it needs to be. And then so put on a little bit of glue there. And use my little putty. Tip to grab that trunk of the tree. So now we have these 2 pieces and our card front. This is gonna go right here. And we're just gonna use the tips will come like basically right to the edge of the peaceful pine. And then our tree right in the center. Just kind of using the papers that are going across to get it as even as I can. Press that down. I'm gonna add a button from our mini Christmas buttons. I'm gonna use a red one. Just put that right there on the tree. All right, for our sentiment, we're gonna use this Cheers stamp, which is right here. I'm gonna put that on a small block. And then we're gonna punch that using the 3 banner punch. And we're using this one. And we want the flare going that way. So I'm gonna line it up. And punch. And we're gonna attach that with Stampin' Dimensionals. And onto my edges. And I wanna use every bit of this. So I'm just gonna cut a couple pieces and put them on our sentiment, peel the backing, and put it on our card fronts. Now, all we need to do is our inside piece. For our inside piece, we need a piece of white cardstock that is 5 1/4 by 4. And at the bottom, we're just gonna put a piece of that candy cane DSP, a 1/2 inch by 4 inches. So we'll go ahead and put some liquid glue on our strip of DSP. And line that up on the bottom. Slide it over. Okay, and then I'm going to adhere that with some Stampin' Seal. To our inside. And card 5 is complete.